future home.
Salamat Balik, which is Syrian for welcome. And welcome to Inner Earth, your future home. What we're going to do today is give you an insight into what Inner Earth is all about. And as we do this, I'm going to add my own insights as to what I remember about Inner Earth. What is going to happen to the surface of planet Earth as it's restored is that all the so-called lost or sunken continents of this planet will return to the surface area. The continent of Lemuria will be restored and take up a large area of the Pacific Ocean. And of course Atlantis, which the Atlantic Ocean is named after, will also rise. And this will lead to a whole new area where we're almost 50-50 surface area land, surface area water, oceans. Now, part of this plan is also to restore all of the major ecosystems in this planet that mankind has destroyed over the last 13 millennia, and also from the period from the destruction of Lemuria. So what we're going to have is a lush and pristine Earth that looks a lot different than the one we now exist in. And further, since we'll all be fully conscious beings live within a planet, not outside of the planet. So the world of Inner Earth will be the world that we will reside in. Only on special node areas where there are temples to help with the planetary guardianship or stewardship, as some people prefer, will allow you to therefore come to the surface as a group to do a ritual as part of this standard process of helping the Earth to become balanced and at its maximum potential of energy. So this whole process of change is about two things. It's about the Earth returning to what she was, including her original ecosystems, and it's about human beings becoming what they were on the surface world and returning to their family in Inner Earth and creating a new part of the star nation of the solar system, or whatever name we'd like to call it. Because the same process is going to happen on Mars, it's going to happen in Venus, and it's going to happen in, whether you call it Bologna as I do, or in Maldek as a lot of other people do, it's going to happen there. Of course, in that particular aspect, it's going to be a massive reconstitution of all the asteroid belt's components to create a planet nearly 3.5 times the size of our planet, planet Earth. And this has massive oceans, massive amounts of ecosystem to be recreated, as well as 4 natural moons, and of course the artificial moon, which is our moon right now, will be returned to it. And the 2 original moons that were destroyed through mankind's various ideas, mainly by the Atlanteans, will of course be restored. So we'll have 2 moons, 3/4 the size of the moon we now see every evening, and we'll also have an Earth that looks a lot different than the Earth that we now know. And we will be fully conscious members of this planet and of the entire solar system, of all the various 4 water worlds that exist from Venus through Bologna. And this whole world and this whole solar system will be operating at its maximum God-given efficiency. And that's really what this whole process is about, is we are to become fully conscious stewards of the solar system and indirectly of the entire galaxy. Now, the most important thing to remember is that Earth really doesn't look the way all the geologists say it looks. It doesn't look that way at all. So what we're going to do is have the first slide, and as you look at it, what you're going to see is this marvelous picture of what the Earth looks like as you approach it from outside the solar system and inward. And you'll see in the particular slide that the sun is in front of the Earth, just barely ticking over the edge. And as you come in from the moon, this is how the Earth usually looks, the clouds, etc. And as you move in and go around the Earth, suddenly it's nighttime. And as you look at the next slide, you'll see North America and South America with all the different patterns of lights where all the cities are. And so this is, as the ship moves in toward Earth, it now has gone behind the sun, so to speak, and it sees the darkness of the Earth. And as it moves closer, and this is a picture of Apollo 16, an official NASA photograph, as it came in from the moon, so this is the same basic picture that we're talking about here, and as you look in, you'll suddenly see at the top this funny looking depression. And what that is, that's the North Polar Hole. Now if you were going into inner Earth, what you would be looking at is this place where you want to go. So you would actually be moving in, and the next one, which is actually a blow-up of the same photograph, you would now see the North Polar Hole, and you would go inside the Earth. Now there are other ways of getting inside Earth, but let's first look in the next slide at the cross-section of what Mother Earth really looks like. Earth, like all planets, is one that is hollow on the inside and has a floating, because of the nature of the geomagnetics and gravitational fields of the planet, has a central core that's actually floating like an inner sun. And this sun, because of the actions of gravity and the actions of the geomagnetics of the planet, glows. And it's actually almost as bright. It's about 3/4 to 85% to 90%, depending on the time of year, as bright as that of the actual sun that we see here on the outside of the planet. Now the actual polar hole is about 600 miles across, and you'll see that by simply looking at the top and the bottom of this particular diagram that you're looking at right now. And then in the middle of it is the great central sun that we were just talking about. Now surrounding it is the inside of the Earth, and actually the Earth is a continuation both inside and outside of one another. It's almost as if the Earth was a kind of a wrapper, and it rolled itself all the way on the inside. So the outside of the planet and the inside of the planet, as far as its topography, its physical features, is almost the same. Although the mountains on the inside of the Earth tend to be a little bigger. So if you look now at another one, which is the next slide, now this cross-section allows you to get a better idea of what I'm talking about here. On the outside is the outside of the planet. The inside is the inside of the planet. And you'll see that the inside has mountains and oceans, etc. And then the middle between the outside crust and the inside crust, as I like to call it, is the center. And in those places, which is roughly about 400 miles, in other words, the middle, is this whole central section that we're talking about here, in this cross-section. There's 800 miles across. And so you have between 400 miles, either the inside of the Earth or the outside crust. You have these various so-called crystal city caverns, which I have here in the diagram. And so you have these caverns inside the Earth. So actually, if you were to look at what is the makeup of inner Earth, the first part is the actual outside surface, or the inside surface if you were on the inside. And that, of course, is the mountains, the rivers, the streams, the continents, etc., which are usually, the oceans on the inside are actually larger, the mountains are actually bigger, and the plains are larger. So you can tell from looking on the inside of the Earth, if you had a map of the inside of the Earth, that it's slightly different. The outside of the Earth, because of the atmosphere and rain, etc., and weather, is a lot more worn, and that's why the mountains are bigger and the oceans are larger, etc., etc., etc. So what you have here is the Earth. But let's look at what the Earth is. So if we can go back to the first bullet. Mother Earth is a 12-faceted crystal with large entry and exit holes at the north and south poles. Inner Earth's topography is just an extension of the physical features found on the Earth's outer surface. The central sun is smaller, not as bright, as we said, no more than 80 or 90% at the very most, and never sets. This is another difference, is you have the equivalent that you'd be having this time of year in the northern hemisphere, which is the so-called 24-hour sun. Now, if we look at the inner Earth, as I said, the mountains are taller, oceans bigger, jungles denser, and meadow areas larger. Vibrant life is everywhere. This is because on inner Earth, the energies of the planet, because it gets the direct energies of the core, is a lot more vibrant, as it says here. It's a lot more livable. The energy is greater. So what you actually have is 24 hours a day of this vibrant energy hitting every part of inner Earth. And of course it spews over, and at night it becomes more visible, and this leads to the aurora borealis, the various things that are seen in the sky, the electrical displays. They're actually not from cosmic energies, they're remnants of this bright energy from the core of the Earth. Now Agartha is filled with crystal cities that dot her inner Earth landscape. Her capital is Shambhala, and we'll be talking about all of that later on. There are also large caverns, as we just described, in the Earth that contain various crystal cities. One of these is Shambhala, and another is under Mount Shasta here in California, which is called Telos. Now let's look at how to find these major portals which we're talking about. Now, because of the fall of Atlantis and the rise on this planet of limited conscious beings such as ourselves, what happened was the people who took over, the Anunnaki, acted very much like those people who wanted to be the sky gods or the creator gods for the limited conscious humans who were now in amnesia and had forgotten their origins. So what they did was they sealed up most of the major portals. Now, where are these portals found? The major portals are found on around the equator, 19.5 degrees latitude from both poles, as well as these two polar holes that we've talked about. Many of these portals, because of what the Anunnaki did, those people who live in inner Earth have made these portals to be hidden, and they're found in mountains, thick forests, and under rivers or lakes. Most of these portals were destroyed by the Anunnaki, as I said, and only a select few can still be used. So let's look at how the crystal Earth lines up. Now, if you look at the crystal Earth, as I said, and as the slide shows, you can get a better idea where all these particular red arrows are represents these points that we just talked about. Near the poles, you'll see the 19.5 degree point, and near the equator, you'll see the two central arrows, and the same one in the South Pole. So what you have here are the major portal areas. Now there's a network of portals, and these portals are, the major nodes of these portals are along these lines we've just described, and then there are what are called subnodes. And along these subnodes, which may be in mountains, like the Andes, or the Rockies here in North America, or that may be in rivers or lakes or streams. There's a famous portal in the Nile which is described by a lot of people who have had secret initiations, and that the way you enter it is by getting in the Nile, knowing where it is, swimming, and thinking certain sacred thoughts so that you can find it and then emerge, or otherwise, of course, you're so far underneath the bottom of the river, you're right at the very bottom of the Nile, you would drown, of course, because of the undercurrents and the eddies, so it makes it very difficult once you've even found it to swim there. But even more so with the oceans, all of them are very, very deep. So let's have an example of what we're talking about here. Now let's look at a hidden portal. If you look at the top one, you'll see that the portal actually looks like a mountain. It doesn't look like there's any kind of a potential slide there that can cause, when it opens, for an opening. Now at the bottom you see the slide opened, and you see the actual place where you can get in. Now all of these particular portals are set up so that they are either opened by one of three ways. They're either opened by thinking, telepathy, they're opened by making a sound, or they're opened by a special code of words. or they may be combinations of all three so that the portal opens. That was done so that the Anunnaki would not find these things so easily. They are so well done that it's virtually impossible to determine that there's a portal on the other side of the mountain. So, what you have here is an article published in January 11, 2007, and written by John Stokes, the national co-managing editor of The Canadian, an independent, not-for-profit national newspaper. The headline states, "Scientists find extraterrestrial genes in human DNA." In the article, it reports that a group of researchers working in association with the Human Genome Project indicate that they made an astonishing scientific discovery. Their group leader, Professor Sam Chang, announced that after a lot of scientific analysis, they have discovered that 97% non-coding sequences in human DNA is of ET origin. These non-coding sequences in human DNA are also known as junk DNA. Because most scientists consider these portions of the gene to be useless garbage, to them, that portion of DNA does not code for proteins and appears to consist of meaningless and repeating sequences. It's actually a mystery to them. They don't know if it has any function. What you are looking at now is an article from BBC News. According to BBC News, dated April 26, 2006, a mathematical analysis of the human genome suggests that so-called junk DNA might not be so useless after all. A team from IBM has identified patterns or motifs that were found both in the junk areas of the gene and those which coded for proteins. What that means is that junk DNA might have an important function after all. It is interesting to note that junk DNA is common to all living things on Earth, from microbes to humans. According to Professor Chang, what we see in our DNA is a program consisting of two versions, a big code and basic code. My interpretation is that the basic code is currently an active DNA program. This creates a limited conscious human. And the big code is currently an inactive or dormant DNA program. When your basic code plus your big code are both active, it creates a fully conscious human. Professor Chang states, 1. First fact is the complete program was positively not written on Earth. That is now a verified fact. 2. The second fact is that genes by themselves are not enough to explain evolution. There must be something more in the game. My commentary on the first fact is that the program was not written on Earth. Scientists are beginning to discover and admit the possibility of our ET origins, that we are not from here. On the second fact, that is the game has rules. Divine consciousness makes creation. That is the game of creation. To give you a brief background, in 1962, James Watson and Francis Crick won the Nobel Prize for describing the double helix DNA molecule. In 1981, Crick published a theory he called directed panspermia that basically suggests that life on Earth originated not on Earth but from advanced ETs. It's explained in his book Life Itself, Its Origins and Nature. In 1990, the Human Genome Project, headed by Watson, was launched to map out our DNA gene sequence. In other words, it was counting how many genes are needed to create a human body. Hundreds of scientists around the world contributed to this research, which reached its goal in 2003. At final count, we have approximately 22,000 genes in one cell, which is surprisingly much less than the genes of plants and other Earth creatures. So let's look at inner Earth now. What we've talked about initially is how it's similar. In other words, there's mountains, there's lakes, there's rivers, there's an atmosphere. The difference is the bright, vibrant central sun. Even though its light isn't as bright, it does provide a vast amount of life-giving energy for all the beings and all the animals and all the plants that live in inner Earth. Now what we're going to talk about are, as you can see here, and I'm going to describe these 6 life zones in greater detail, but let me just quickly name them for you so you can get a better idea of what we're talking about. Now the first zone on the top is the crystal cities, which we're going to be talking about a lot in a few minutes. The next part are the crystal caverns, which are also crystal cities, but these are the crystal cities in the cavern worlds. The third part is the Galactic Federation bases, which we're going to be describing when we go in to talk about the crystal cities. And then we have the various life zones of plants and animals. The first part that you see down here is for the various extinct animals. The next one is for the various dangerous extinct animals. And the final one is for the various creatures from our present surface ecology systems that have migrated to the inner Earth. Now let's look at these many zones of Agartha in detail. As I said, there are 6 major life or ecological zones that exist in the inner Earthlands of Agartha. The first is where the crystal cities are located. These are surrounded by special energy fields. One of the first things you will do when you approach the crystal cities, as we'll be talking about in a little bit, is you will notice immediately this wonderful heart energy. And this heart energy is all about love and caring and making you feel a part of who and what they are. And when I first went into Inner Earth, that's the first thing that I remembered as I approached, as I go through my various memories. The first thing that I remembered, the first impulse was of this energy. The next thing you see, as we'll be talking about when we go into Inner Earth, is the whole process of looking at the colors. The colors of the crystal cities shift all the time. Because what they're doing is they're taking the energy of the Earth, which is moving through them, because all crystal cities are located on nodes and subnodes of the planet. Now what are these nodes and subnodes? A node is simply, if you were to take different ley lines, which are the energy lines of the planet, and stick them all together, there would be points where they all converge. And these are major energy circuit points. These are places where you can plug in, so to speak, into the Earth's main energy core and feel the energies of the central sun and of the planet. And of course, as these different lines go from main ley lines to sublines, you have what are called the so-called subnodes. And they are similar. They're not as strong, but they're subnodes. There are 12 of these major, because it's a 12-faceted crystal, there are 12 of these nodes on the planet. The nodes go through the entire planet, so at the bottom of the planet, which is actually Inner Earth, which to them is their top, is of course these same 12 nodes. And there are 144 of these subnodes, which are connected through these minor ley lines to the main ley lines. And so if you were to actually look at the Earth and the field system, you would see a huge core of lines, thick lines, and every so often as you look you would see these what would appear like very lively, larger central points. These would be the major nodes, and then smaller points which may change in their diameter, but they're lesser because they're hooked into different degrees of these lesser lines. And so you would see larger lines, these main lines, or main ley lines as they're called here on the surface. These are what dowsers use to find water and also to find how the energy lines of the Earth operate. And then as you move outward, you get the lesser lines. And so if you could see these lines, you would see this multicolored aura of a planet shifting and changing colors, and these minor energy points changing as well, and the nodes also shifting in their color patterns. So this is what we're talking about. Now, if we were to look, as I said, the crystal cities are located on the surface of the planet and are also found within the Earth and different parts of the cavern worlds, which basically are from 40 miles to 400 miles. And of course the 400-mile point is roughly the center gravity point where the gravity energy switches between the inner Earth gravity and the outer or physical Earth that we're more used to. Now, these are the first two zones. The third zone are the various worldwide Galactic Federation of Light bases that are usually located in these caverns. What you'll have is a cavern crystal city, and next to the cavern crystal city will be a base. And it'll look like a small set of crystals. When we look at the crystal cities and you'll see the different illustrations, you'll see how they look like enormous, right on a floor of crystals that you would find, let's say, in a crystal cave. You would see these huge sets of stalactites or whatever, depending on whether you're looking up or down. And you would see these patterns. And when you get to actual crystals, you would see crystals kind of sticking all over the place with their little facets coming out. So what you have is this larger version, which is the crystal city, and what we're talking about. But let's talk about the bases, since I don't really have illustrations of them. The bases are much smaller, because they have three basic functions. First of all the ships of the Galactic Federation that may need certain degrees of maintenance are brought to these particular bases. The second thing happens is a lot of the planning for various operations that happen every day of the Galactic Federation, depending on the region of the Earth, happen in the appropriate Galactic Federation base. The third thing that happens is this is where various liaisons are housed that work with the Crystal City peoples, the peoples of Agartha, in designing and preparing and carrying out various plans which are part also of the first contact. So in just about every crystal cavern that has a crystal city, you'll see these small things that look like smaller versions of the crystal cities. And these are the actual bases of the Galactic Federation. And they did it that way because they did not want to interfere in any way with the standard lifestyle and life cycle of the various cities and how Agartha is done. We see ourselves as people that have come as part of a conversion. And this, of course, are the people of the Galactic Federation. And what they're doing is allowing for a short period of time this whole concept of preparing for and actually carrying out a first contact. This is the reason why the bases are like that. Once first contact is done, most of these bases will be disassembled, and then the region which was set aside for the bases will then be used to expand the crystal cities. So this is what has happened as far as the bases go. Now, the next part, the fourth zone, is where, as I said, these are now the three basic zones of animals and plants and flora on our particular inner Earth area. The fourth zone is where ancient and recent animals who are now extinct were placed. One of the things that when creatures were becoming extinct on the surface of this planet was that the Agarthans wanted very much, as part of their stewardship, to maintain these animals and these plants and the flora and fauna that create certain definite ecosystems that became extinct, to maintain them. The reason for this was twofold. One, once the Earth becomes fully conscious again, many of these animals, many of these plants, many of these ecosystems will be restored on the surface. So these are the basic core points for doing that. The second reason for doing this was that it was felt very important that all the energy of outer Earth and the energy of inner Earth be maintained at a certain level. And that meant that they had to keep these particular creatures and plants, etc., alive. Now the last two zones include places where very dangerous animals that now live were placed. And then the last zone are those same kind of animals that are supposedly extinct. So there are actual zones in inner Earth that are carefully protected, where very dangerous ancient animals like large mammals, and which of course couldn't exist on our surface of our planet or be roaming around on the surface of inner Earth, because they would then mess up the ecozones of inner Earth. So what happened is these zones were set aside based upon the energy patterns of inner Earth. And these patterns are then maintained by the Agarthans and by the various physical divas that are part of maintaining Mother Earth in a certain level of energies, so that she can be quickly, when it becomes the right moment, become fully conscious. So we've now seen the 6 major life zones. So let's now move on to the crystal cities and get a better idea of what they're all about. Let us encounter the crystal cities. At a distance, as I said, first you feel the love energies, and then the crystal cities begin looking like huge opalescent crystal clusters surrounded by multicolored force fields. And this is one of the things when you start feeling the energies of this particular aspect, it starts looking like a living kaleidoscope. The patterns are shifting, and the second thing that you also have, the colors are shifting. And these involve all kinds of pastels and bright colors, and these are changing all the time, almost like you might say every second. It's like a permanently switching kaleidoscope that has all kinds of shapes, patterns, and colors. And you also notice the pulsing of the fields, and these are changing colors as the field around the crystals, the reflections of the crystals, are changing. So of course this is something that with illustrations you cannot really do unless you had a complete animation or a motion picture. Since motion pictures are not allowed, we have the illustrations. Now these cities are constructed around locations that are either quite verdant, that means quite alive, quite green, or mountainous. Most of the major nodes of our planet are in areas that are either very mountainous or have very dense vegetation, because the energy of the node encourages life to form there. So plant life in these particular regions just goes crazy, so to speak. And you get the densest parts of the Amazon were where the nodes were, and the subnodes, of course. Now when you also get close, you start to notice there aren't any doors and windows. It looks just like a giant crystal. I mean, these things are tens to hundreds of miles across. So it looks like this monstrous crystal. But at the same time, you wonder, okay, it's incredibly beautiful. You feel all this loving heart energy. How do you get inside? There's no doors. There's no windows. There doesn't seem to be this giant bay door that can open so the ship can get in. So what happens is, once again, the ships don't need doors. They simply align themselves to the field of the crystal city and go into where the docking bay is. So let's look at the next slide, and this gives you an idea of what the crystal city looks like. And what you see there in the upper right corner is the core, the central sun, and it shines all the time on the city. And then what you have to imagine here, which we couldn't do, is what we're talking about. This incredible pulsing of the energy, like a huge visible aura around the crystal city, and this kaleidoscope of colors and patterns and shapes. So as you see all of this, you begin to notice that this is really an incredible thing. And if this is a city, what does it look like inside? And as I said, next slide please, one usually enters by spacecraft on the upper level, which is really just a huge landing bay and terminal. Doors and windows appear whenever the inhabitants telepathically ask for them. So let's say you want to leave, and you want to walk outside on the actual floor of inner Earth, and you want to see what the mountains look like from up close, or you want to pick up a rock or touch a plant or look at an animal and see what its reaction will be or what it feels like. And so the way you do this is telepathically. They'll get close to what they call the outer walls of the crystal city, and they'll telepathically ask in their home language, the Agarthan language, which is very similar to the old Lemurian language, which is kind of a combination of the Syrian and Pleiadian languages. And so they will ask in that language telepathically, and all of a sudden, where there was nothing, this huge door appears, and it just slides open without even a creak, real fast, And you just walk through it. And what happens is the minute you leave, there's this opposite effect. The door closes and disappears. And there you are on the outside. And then you can walk around. Then when you get ready to get back in, and of course when I did this, I had Washta and a few Syrians and also a couple of special liaisons from the Crystal City, the Agarthans. And so the Agarthans were in charge of the whole expedition, if you wanted to call it that. And we spent an hour outside walking around and seeing what the place looked like. And one of the things you realize is that the heat that you get from the central sun does not feel like the heat you feel from a harsh day in the summer of the sun. It feels very diffuse. It's not like when I take a walk, and in the mornings I do a lot of walks, and I'm walking back and it's a sunny day and it's a little warmer than I'm usually used to, I'll feel this huge heat on my back, which is the sun. But when you did that when I was a kid, what you felt immediately was that the heat was not this almost overcoming feeling like a heat lamp on you. It felt warm, but very diffuse. It was almost like a heating pad that was kept on low. You felt the heat, but it wasn't harsh. And they said that's because it's the life energy. The illumination of the central crystal is really the life energy of the planet being illuminated at you. So it's full of love, and at the same time it's this light that has got a degree of heat in it, but it doesn't feel harsh, even when it's the same temperature almost as I would be walking, let's say on my walk here. It's different. Now once you finish, the same thing happens and you go inside. And of course the Agarthans are very much into figuring out and maintaining the ecological environment that surrounds them. So let's go inside this crystal city and have a better look at what it's all about. Now, each section of the city is divided into 4 vertical sections. These are the landing bay at the top, the second level from the top being the recreation and meeting level, and then 2 residential levels. The second level, which is the level below the bay, is noted for many spaces where a group can come together for games, rituals, or for problem solving. The Agarthans' life is that of a galactic society, so their life pattern is that the natural cycles of themselves and their immediate people around them, their pod and their podlets, all the way up to the top part of the clans, and the intermixing of clans, which is part of how galactic societies operate, is considered to be a natural flow. And so this flow allows them to live their lives as individuals and as part of a group. And as part of this process, there are rituals of coming together, there are sports, there are games, there are fun. And this last part we're talking about occurs on these particular levels. Now, if you go down below, the residential areas are holographic theaters where you create the living space that you most desire. Now, this is something that for us right now would seem unique and quite different. Now, the reason why it's so different is, to the Agarthans, as to most fully conscious beings, their environment is not seen as a fixed thing. In other words, to them, walls can be changed, floors can be changed, and ceilings can be changed. What's inside each room that makes up your residence can also be changed, as well as the size of the residence. And this is something that to us may sound fantastic, but to the Agarthans is considered, you might say, something to be expected. Now, how this happens is because each residence area is considered a holographic theater. That is, everything in it is a light pattern that can be changed. But the light pattern feels as solid as this table if you were to be inside there. And it allows you to understand that you can now decorate your environment exactly how you like it. And this environmental check can happen anytime you want. So this makes this difference. But let's have a better look at this. Let's see the next slide. Now here you see the 4 areas that we were just talking about. So each facet of the crystals that you saw at the beginning of the crystal city creates these crystal towers. And these towers are divided up, as you see here, into these 4 sections. The top part is the docking bay. The second part is the working or utility facility. And the next parts is the upper and lower living areas. Now you have to remember this. This is the general pattern of how all the facets look in terms of how they're set up. Life in the crystal cities is based on joy. You have technology that allows you to remake your home space, as we've just said, and what surrounds it. This technology even permits you to visit any locale you wish and to interact with those who live there. So what you have is not only the ability, without leaving, to go anywhere. Let's say you want to have a different place in a different environment. Let's say you're recreating something that from a place you've just been. Let's say you were on a research mission to the surface and you saw some nice houses and you recreated them, and then you saw some other places which they called vacation homes and you said, let me create that. So the entire environment, let's say of a mountain home, can be completely recreated. And this is something that when I was a kid amazed me, because I had seen on the ships how they could change things around, but the concept of doing this to actual living spaces as large as some of these particular environments where the residents are is amazing. I mean, you can virtually change your entire furniture in the twinkling of an eye. All you have to do is think it and it changes. And that's everything. Wall colors, things on the walls, rugs, no rugs, surface of the floor, what the ceiling looks like, what's hanging from the ceiling, lights, etc. Everything changes. And they can do this constantly. To show off, I guess once when I was a kid, I came into a place and they changed what a house looked like and everything in it about 3 times in 12 minutes. That still amazes me. I was flabbergasted. I mean, I was floored. But anyway, they look upon it as being normal. And this is something that we're going to get into. So we have to see that the technology of Inner Earth allows you to live in a space where you can communicate with each other, where you can interact with each other, and where you can go wherever you want by just thinking it. Think of that. You can go wherever you want by just thinking about it. So every part of the crystal cities is filled with actual trees, shrubs, and other types of greenery. It is considered essential because of the interaction between plants and animals on planet Earth that this aspect of plants around us and interacting with plants, because plants are wonderful talkers. Trees love to talk to anybody if they'll listen. Plants are the same. And what they create is this wonderful heavenly energy of both communications, love, and living energy, because the life cycle of animals is enhanced through the life cycle of plants. So you have this natural synergy occurring. And this synergy reaches its height inside the crystal cities. So the next thing we have to do is the next slide. Interior architecture is designed to be flowing, quite functional, and pleasing to the eye. What those people who put together the actual cities themselves, in other words, the ancient original residents of the crystal cities, did was create an environment that is extremely pleasing to yourself. You feel the energy. It's set up so that the colors and the shapes of the inside of the main hallways, the places you go from one place to the other, are set up so that they appeal to you. It's all about your eyes, your mind, and your physical emotions are set up to be relaxed, not stressed, and in a period of constant love. And when you're inside these cities, that's what you feel. And that was set up from the beginning. So think of it, you're born into a space, these crystal cities, that are based upon love, caring, and making you feel expansive, and making you feel that you're in a place of awe and incredible beauty. Now, the second levels, where each meeting or recreational space is set up on the design preferences of the activity's participants. So once again, you go into a space to do a certain kind of ritual. The space is changed so that the different rituals are brought forth in the best possible way. In other words, the proper colors, the proper shape of the ritual site, and all the things change as the ritual happens, so that the people doing the ritual, this energy is, you might say, amplified and brought to its maximum energy and then thrown out into the planet, and especially into the nodal point where the crystal city is. And also, and this is something else that's fascinating, the crystal towers that comprise a crystal city have the ability to change their size, shape, and color. So if you were to look at the crystal cities that are illustrated here, understand that the size of the towers, the facets of the towers, the colors of the towers are always in a period of flux. So not only do you have the aura of the patterns changing, the kaleidoscopic colors changing, but the actual shape of the crystal cities are also constantly changing. So what you have is a living being whose purpose is to act as a residential space for the peoples of Agartha, and also to act as an amplifier of their energies to help maintain and stabilize the energies of Mother Earth. So this is what you begin to see. You see a place that is highly functional, highly set up for ritual, and highly set up for beauty and high aesthetics as far as I said, color, size, shape, etc. So this is what you begin to see, and this is all part of this process. So if we go to the next slide, there are 4 levels of a crystal tower. The bottom 2 are living areas. Now if we were to look at these 2 living areas, we would discover that it's like a giant hive having residential circles. Now the key to all of this is, as you see here, is it's almost like a giant hive, where you have these central circles, which on the far left you can see what these circles look like. And these are all made up of even smaller circles. So you would see within here where it looked like a hive, where the hive's different walls are actually plants, living plants. So what's happening here is you are beginning to see how the crystal city operates. Every living space has a core living space. So the living space, the grand hive, acts as a single spot because that represents the group aspect of a fully conscious being, and at the same time each individual aspect, which represents, you might say, like a podlet, is living. And they're all separated by greenery, which is living, loving, caring plant life. So what you have is the plants amplify and bring back to the people their particular love energies, their ritualistic energies. So you constantly have this exchange, which is created by the plants, of energies between the planet and its nodal point and its subnodal points and the beings in the crystal city. So you have this constant exchange of energies going on, and this is what creates the change in auric energies, the colors, and as the energies have to move, the changes in the size and shapes of the crystals that make up the crystal city. So the crystal city is not like architecture or a city even that resembles anything that we are used to. It's a city based upon life, love, and divine light, whose purpose is simply to manifest the most possible best experience for every person, every individual in the crystal city, as well as the entire planet, and also to do the same thing for planet Earth. So what you have happening here is this exchange. This is one of the things I want to emphasize about inner Earth. When you think of inner Earth, people think of some dark, dank, almost horrific place. What you actually have is this vast, incredible series of crystal cities and this incredible love energy that's going back and forth and all these colors. So think of, you go through the North Polar Hole and you start to approach a series of crystal cities. What you start seeing is all this energy. What you start feeling is this massive love energy. So it's not some dark, dank place. Even the cavern worlds, which we're going to be describing shortly, are not that at all. They're just the opposite. And that's what we need to emphasize when we talk about first contact. When you go inside inner Earth, you are not going to a place of heartlessness and horrific energies. You're going to a place of heart energy and of an incredibly beautiful place that will be designed for who and what you are. The purpose of crystal cities and even of the metamorphic chambers that we're going to be talking about later is about love, it's about light, and it's about the fact that we are moving into being fully conscious beings who understand about these energy exchanges that we have been alluding to through the entire series of this lecture so far. So let's move on to the next place and get a better idea of these residential circles we've been talking about. There are 6 units in one residential circle. You will be provided 1 unit to live in. The units are separated by beautiful gardens. Now what makes each residential unit within the circle unique is that there's a holographic theater involved in the living area. So each unit is what you want to make of it. Each family and or individual who are provided the unit within each residential circle look upon their space as a unique and wonderful challenge to what they want to do every day. If you want to go to a vacation place, if you want to travel around the world, if you want to ski, if you want to swim, it happens. And the reason why that is that the holographic theater provides each individual with the ability, because of how the special technology transfers light into matter, to make you appear and seem and feel that you are actually going through whatever it is you want to do. Let's say you want to swim across a beautiful lake. You can actually see the lake. You'll see miles and miles and miles of the lake around you. You'll dive in. You'll feel the lake at exactly the right temperature of the lake. If there's any living forms you want in the lake, like plants or fish or something like that, they'll be there. The rocks will be real. It will appear to be just as deep as it needs to be for you to feel that you're in a real live lake. You can dive down as far as you need to go. What happens is, let's say you want to do miles and miles of swimming in the lake. Because of the special qualities of this holographic theater, you'll be swimming, but in actuality, you're not swimming in real water. You're swimming in virtual water, because this is holographic. And you can go as far as you want. You can swim, as I said, for miles. Let's say you are from a tropical place, and you are in this particular region in your area, and you want to replicate that. It'll replicate it. And so you'll feel like you're walking up a tropical mountain. You'll feel like you're crossing tropical jungles. You'll even feel, if you go down to the beach, you'll even feel when you try to swim, it'll feel just like you're in the tropics. The water will be warm, and it'll look the same color that I was used to when I was living on Maui, this wonderful shade of blue. So you'll feel exactly that you are in a tropical region. Even the animals will seem like that. Even the bugs biting you, the mosquitoes, will feel real. The same thing goes if you want to live in a mansion. You can live in this huge mansion, and it will seem that way. You can walk and walk and walk through this house, and it will seem to go on for as much and as far as you feel a huge house of that size should go on for. So this is the unique thing about it, is that there are so many different environments. In fact, any environment that you want to create can be immediately done. Now let's go to the next step, and let's look at what one of these units' residential areas actually looks like. Now here's a prototypical residence. Now the rooms in a residence are rounded because the holographic energy works better when there aren't any curves. I mean, not any straight spots, but are curves. The curves are key to how the energy is built up. So most of the furniture you have, as well as the rooms that you're in, will have a curved space. Not pronounced, but the edges at least will be curved. So the result is that there's virtually no corners in any of these places. Now, this is what you see here in this picture of a prototypical residence is some of the areas that you could have. The energy fields can make whatever you want. If we were to look down to the one on the far lower left, you'd see there's a processor unit there, or a replicator. What this replicator is a smaller version of the holographic theater we've just been talking about, and it has the same basic capabilities. Only this time it's been set up to do furniture, all different kinds of furniture. You can have, as you see at the top, if you want a couch, you want 3 couches, you want 2 couches, you want chairs, it will create it. Most replicators are usually in a dining facility because they are mainly used for 2 things, providing you with dishes and food. And the neat thing about them is, let's say you want to have a large meal, let's say a 2 or 3 course meal on all different kinds of fancy dishes and all different kinds of fancy types of silverware. If you want to do that, you simply tell it to the replicator and it'll create it. And you pull it out of the little spot on the bottom, and in the case of furniture, it will beam the furniture the required distance from where you want it. So let's say you're having a party and you have a little table for 2. It will take back the table for 2 and it'll bring out whatever size, let's say 6 or 12 people type dining facility, and let's say you want a certain meal set up for the party. It will do that. So when the time comes, it will get the plates you want, the silverware you want, the drinks you want, etc., etc., etc. Placemats, everything you could possibly think of. It will do that, and then it will allow you, when it's finished, to take everything and put it right back in the machine. So you take it out of the tray, you put it back in the tray. So what does it mean? It means you can get all the food you want, and guess what? No dishes. No worries about the need to fill up your dishwasher. No need about the worries about how many dishes do I have to clean if I don't have a dishwasher. No need or worry about, is my furniture enough for what I want to do? You can constantly change that. Now, not only can you do that, but with the help of the holographic theater and the replicator, you can change the size of your house. Let's say you want a bigger house. It'll happen. What kind of walls do you want? What colors? That'll happen. What kind of ceilings? Do you want them higher or lower? That'll happen. So no matter what you want, or any kind of fabrics, that'll happen. Clothes, whatever kind of clothes you want, that'll happen. And guess what? You don't have to wash your clothes. No laundry. So these are the kind of amazing things that happen. Now for cleaning themselves, as far as showers go, as you see on the right side, you see that they have a sonic shower. And the sonic shower is kind of neat because all you have to do is walk in and walk out. 30, 20-second showers. And then if you want whatever kind of clothes you want, you go to the replicator and it'll get you your clothes. And guess what? It fits perfectly. Now let's say you want to communicate with people. What you can do now with the multimedia communication center that you see next to the bed on the right side is communicate with anybody. And what happens is the communicator will allow that person to appear in their full size in 3D, and it'll be just like you're having a conversation with somebody who's sitting in a chair across the room. So this is the neat thing, and they could be on the other side of the planet. It doesn't matter. Or even in a spaceship on their way to the Pleiades or Sirius. They're still there. The Multimedia Center is both multidimensional and operates by light patterning. So the result is that you instantly are in full communication with everybody. So phones suddenly will seem very primitive. Television likewise will seem very primitive because the Multimedia Center produces everything in full life life-size CD. And these CDs, or I should say DVDs, are perfect. They're exact replicas. So if you want to do a movie where it's a Western, you can even participate in the Western. You can go to the replicator, get your clothes right size and shape and size and color, and you can participate. So suddenly you have a center where not only you can have something to entertain yourself with, but it's entirely interactive. And this is what makes this neat. And of course, you have a bed. And of course, most of the people who are fully conscious don't really need beds except for a 1-hour rejuvenation period that they do every day. When they do that, they lay down in a bed that is absolutely form-fitting and super comfortable. They go into their deep meditative trance for an hour, and they are completely refreshed. And then for another 23 hours, they go out and do their task, even having fun, having rituals, having dances, whatever. So this is what the residence is like. It's totally interactive. It's set up so that there's absolutely no way that you cannot have joy or you cannot communicate with anybody. So if you look at the place, one of the things you'll notice is that there are no bathrooms. Now the reason why there's no bathrooms is because the food that you eat is basically made out of light. So what it does is it goes into your body, it divides up into the proteins and the minerals, etc., that you need to make your body work absolutely perfectly, and then there's no need for waste because all the water you drink is absorbed. All the food is absorbed. And it goes directly into energy. So this is one of the things that when people from other planets come here that's kind of strange is they look at bathrooms, especially toilets and other similar facilities, as being strange and odd. How quaint. So if you look at crystal cities, you discover that at the center of each crystal city, as we said, is located a node or major subnode of the Earth's grid system. Therefore, everything that you do is energized by the planet. Everything that you wish to do is manifested. This is one of the other things that why we have to be specially trained is because when you become fully conscious, you have to learn and become disciplined about what you want and what you really don't want. Because there's a law that says whatever you want, you will get. So because of that, you have to understand the nature of what is and what is not that you really need. Now the consciousness energy produced by each city, as I said, helps to balance the Earth's grid. So the Earth is providing all this energy, but in turn, everyone in this particular crystal city and in the whole network of crystal cities around the planet are using their energies to balance the Earth. So what we have is a true synergy happening here, where everyone is helping the planet and the planet is helping everyone. And also the energies that come in through the central sun, which are the universal energies, the multidimensional energies of creation, are fully distributed to their maximum amount throughout the planet and to every crystal city. And this is what is eventually going to help regrow the surface and help it change into what it's meant to be as well. Next slide, please. Shambhala is one of the so-called cavern crystal cities. These crystal cities operate in caverns that are between roughly 40 to 400 miles below ground. These particular crystal cities in the caverns, in many ways, are considered very important to all of Agartha because they represent kind of what you might call the controller energies of the planet. These caverns, because of the energies that they do, act as amplifiers. And so they really help the energy be amplified. That's why about half of all the crystal cities on this planet that are in the inner Earth are in cavern worlds. Now, a prime example of this can be seen in our next slide. And this is Shambhala. And if you look at the slide, you'll see that Shambhala is located below the capital of Tibet, which is Lhasa. Now, Shambhala is the largest of all the crystal cities on the planet, and it is located about 400 miles down, right about at the center point we were talking about between inner Earth and the surface world's gravity field. This is kind of the neutralizer field. Now, Shambhala is enormous. It's roughly about 300 to 400 miles across in diameter. It is the largest of all the crystal cities. It is unique because within it is the governing council, and the governing council of the crystal cities of Agartha is the center of government for the entire kingdom or province or governing group of Agartha, as you want to call it. It's not really a kingdom because all the governing aspects, in other words, the various types of offices that a person could hold, are just there for honor, not really for show, really, not for substance. All of Shambhala is governed by the people who make it up. Shambhala knows that as well because it considers itself honored in that it is considered not only the largest of all the major cities, but the most beautiful because of the energies that are produced by it. Because all the crystal cities send their energies to Shambhala's, the capital of Agartha. So one of the two major nodes is held there is in Tibet. So, and something else we have to understand is that Agartha is a member of the Galactic Federation of Light, and all Galactic Federation on-planet activities begin in Shambhala. Therefore, Shambhala is huge not only because of all the people assigned to it by Agartha, but also because of all the people assigned to it by the Galactic Federation and all its different members. Now, the Galactic Federation operates really on two levels. First is the level of the main governing council and all the different groups that operate below it to help the aspects of in other words, the policies of the main council of the Galactic Federation to be carried out. There's another level, which is the ambassadorships, which exist from each member state or nation to another. This role for planet Earth and for this solar system is done through Shambhala and through the Agarthans. So the Agarthans consider themselves right now to kind of be the standers in, or the pro-temps for planet Earth and its peoples. This is why to the Agarthans, the union of inner Earth and the surface worlds is very important, because this means that finally, for the first time since the fall of Atlantis, the surface worlds and the inner Earth worlds will be united again. For the first time in recent history, for the first time really in 13 millennia, planet Earth will be one. This is extremely vital to the mission of Shambhala and to the mission of the nation that it is the capital of, Agartha. The Agarthans have worked very, very hard to make absolutely sure that what is about to happen, which is first contact, occurs in a way that allows for all of us to equally become part of this new galactic society. Galactic societies, as you probably surmised by now, or haven't, but I will just help you with the surmising right now with what I'm about to say. Galactic societies are set up for two purposes. Purpose one is to set up joy among all its inhabitants. Purpose two is to fulfill the basic life mission of every individual that makes up that society. Therefore, when the Shambhalans in their capital look up, and the Agarthans and the other crystal cities around this planet, like for instance Telos and Mount Shasta, look up at the surface world, what they see is a world in chaos and conflict. A world in which joy is very limited, a world in which the full potential of everybody is not at all provided for. They want this to change. They want a massive shift to happen. That's also why heaven has worked very hard to allow us to get this great shift. That's why our RNA, DNA is being changed. That's why we are now in a process of moving from being limited conscious beings to being fully conscious beings. So this is very, very important. Another thing that's very important is to carry on the various traditions in the surface world that help this surface world to move forward. This is one of the things that is very important to the Agarthans. That's why they have worked very hard with various figures in the religious history of our planet to make sure that this shift occurs in its natural flow. It's very important that this flow happens, that it continues, and that it ends shortly. This is why the people who live in Shambhala, in the capital city, very much want all of us to know that this process of change is something that is happening and that it's very, very important. Now, one of the things that makes Shambhala as a capital uniquely different is that while it has the usual 4 levels, it has the usual 2 residential levels, it has something very unique. And this is what we want to talk about, and in doing that get a better idea of what the government, quote-unquote, of Agartha, that is of course located in its capital Shambhala, what it is all about. So, next slide please. Now this shows something very important. This is the governing council chambers. Now this is level 2. Look at this as being level 2, and that the picture in the middle shows the top level off, and just a small section in the center of the second level being shown. Now if you look at the figure, which is an example of the petals here, what has happened is this. This council chamber is set up to represent the 12 basic clans that make up Agartha. Each one of these clans has a place in there. Now to further emphasize this, there are these petals, these lotus blossoms. So what we have here is the governing council, and around it are these wonderful rose petals. In the middle of the rose petals are these special meeting rooms. Now when the governing council meets, what happens is the council is meeting. At the same time, the sub-leaders of all the different clans are in these lotus petal type objects, with the dome being their meeting hall. And when the meeting happens, there's this energy exchange. All these meetings are looked upon as massive interactive ritual to bring forward the energies of the Galactic Society, of the Agarthans, and of the planet. Because what their main concerns are maintaining the joy within their society and maintaining the energies of the planet. Now, let's go on to the next slide. As it says here, the governmental council chambers are found on the second level with a purple colored dome. Surrounding this special structure are dozens of large meeting rooms. Shambhala is noted for the beauty and magnificence of its natural setting and how it blends into her surroundings. As a matter of fact, if you were to be in a ship on inner Earth heading into the cavern where Shambhala is, you would not see Shambhala until you were well into the cavern, because even though it's glowing, its aura is changing, it has this beautiful shade where the council chambers are, which is toward the center of the crystal structures. This permanent, beautiful, different shades of purple, and then around it are all these changing kaleidoscopic colors. And because it's unique, Shambhala is the only crystal city in all of inner Earth and all of Agartha that has this purplish, changing color center. And that's how people know it's Shambhala. They will see the purple color when they enter this chamber. And this chamber, of course, is connected to the surface world through a series of special tunnels. And of course, the crystal city itself that makes up Shambhala, there are these magnificent, huge crystals that surround the edges of the chamber. And so as a result, it is considered to be unbelievably beautiful. Now, let's move into the next section. We're now going to talk about the metamorphosis that all of us are going to go through to become fully conscious beings. Now, what we've been talking about with the crystal cities is just one part of the whole process of what we're talking about here, because what we need to know is the Agarthans live in permanent structures, and what we're going to be moving into are temporary structures. And these temporary structures are going to be able to do two things. The first thing is to copy perfectly our home environments. It's considered vitally important by the Agarthans that when you begin the next part of your process of change, that change perfectly mirrors the environment that you live in. So the first phase of this is that, remember we were talking about all the different residential circles, and that these residential circles were divided into 6 units. Now each one of these units in your case will be a perfect mirror of the world that you now live in, the environment you now live in. For instance, if you had a car, you'll have a car there. If you drive to work, because of the nature of the holographic theater, you can get in your car, turn on the engine, go out your driveway, go down the road and drive all the way to work, and guess what? You've gone 20 feet. But you won't know it. To you, it's so real. And this is the thing we have to emphasize. The holographic theaters make your aspect of planet Earth seem absolutely real. It's a perfect replication. You can even bang on the walls of your house. You can call friends up on your telephone. You can look through your TV set and see the programs that you always see. You can change all the channels. It'll be a perfect replication. Your computer will be exactly the same. You'll have the same internet cycles. Whatever it is you are usually doing in the course of a day, you will do. The reason for this is very simple. The first stage of the metamorphosis is that you will be given instructions on what the next and final stage will be, which is the actual switching off of your limited conscious RNA DNA, as we talked about in the beginning with the particular article that we were talking about the fact that your junk DNA is actually alien DNA. This alien DNA can make you into a fully conscious being. To do that, it needs to create a pattern of light and energy within your genetic structure that turns off the RNA DNA that makes you the limited conscious individual that you are. All your memories, all your beliefs, all your feelings, all that you know as your world and who you really are as you see it. What is going to happen is that's going to be switched off. The important memories and other things that are part of who you are going to be switched over, and the alien RNA DNA, the fully conscious RNA DNA, will be activated. Now to do this requires a period of some rest. They estimate it will take about 3 days roughly, maybe as little as 15 hours. It will depend upon the individual. To do this, you need to feel relaxed. You need to feel that you are in a world that is the same as the world that you exist in presently, and that for the very immediate future you will still be living in. This is a concept of transition, a transition with joy and with love. And as you do this, and you move into the crystal cities, you'll be given perks. These perks increase as your psychic energies increase. Because before you enter the crystal cities in inner Earth that are part of the so-called metamorphosis, you will have been given instructions in telekinesis, remote viewing, clairaudience, telepathy, etc. You have developed a degree of skill with this. What they want to do next, they being the Galactic Federation and the Agarthans, is to provide for you a way to use this in a safe environment that you feel perfectly comfortable with and go beyond it. Which means from time to time you can teleport into the real crystal cities and observe and watch what's happening, and even take part in the process of daily life. The concept is to slide you over slowly actually as fast as is divinely possible, into becoming fully conscious beings and understanding the four laws, understanding what galactic society is, understanding what fluid management is, understanding how to utilize and bring forth your full potential, and to not be afraid or feel shy about taking that potential and manifesting it by expressing your ideas and how you feel various things need to be addressed. This is the key to the process of what the metamorphosis is all about. So the first stage of this metamorphosis is to put you in a unit, in a residential circle, that perfectly mirrors what you are and what you're about. Then gradually, as you begin to understand what this process is, you can then move into the next stage. That next stage is being able to take larger replicators, which exist in the holographic theater, and change your immediate environment. As these changes occur, any pets that you have will be reintroduced. The pets want you to understand them, to feel them, to talk with them, so that you begin a new set of relationships with animals and plants in this world, entirely different than what you may think is possible or what you may now be doing. The idea, again, is to prepare you to move in joy from what you now live in to the next phase, which is your fully conscious self. To do this requires some degree of preparation. That's what these places for metamorphosis are about. You are people that are in transition. This transition is not negative, it's not limited, it's not something that's a great horror. As we've said, and as we've talked about during the course of this entire time with you, is that we being the Galactic Federation and the Agarthans, we are working in a way that allows you to be able to change in a way that doesn't crimp your style, so to speak, just enlarges your potential and increases the abilities that you have to better understand how the universe works and how you interact with it to unfold creation. That's all that this whole process is about. Every part of this operation is preparing you to do that, which is what fully conscious beings or physical angels do. So as it says here at the bottom, they are made this way to permit you to feel comfortable before the actual procedures begin. Now let's look at the metamorphosis city so we can get a better idea of what we're talking about. Now, as you see, the metamorphosis crystal cities are mostly in chambers. They are crystals. They are beautiful things of art and of life. Now let's move into the part 2 of this. So as we said, all that exists in the crystal cities that are part of the metamorphosis is to help you enjoy and in security and in safeness move from one level, which is limited consciousness, to full consciousness. So all 4 levels are temporary residences. As we just said, the 2 top levels are residences instead of the space landing bay and the meeting center. Now, like a regular crystal city, each unit in this great circle or hive, each unit of this hive is this residential circle. And this residential circle is divided, just as the ones in the real crystal cities, they are divided into 6 units. Each one of these units is, as in the real units, is divided by the huge gardens and the central control unit, this control section, which allows you to meet with everybody who lives in the section, in the unit, and also allows you to see the beauty that can be created in a crystal city. Now, each one of these 6 units, and you'll be assigned to one of these, your family, you or your family, depending on your condition of how you are. Are you single? Do you have a family? Do you have children? Whatever. And as I said, the environment that you now reside in will be completely replicated. The children can go off to school, play with their friends. You can have interaction with your friends, with your family. This is not an ending or an interruption of who and what you are. It is bringing you into a unique environment that replicates perfectly what you're now used to. This is being done, as I said, for security and also to maintain the love energy, so you can see just how detailed and how bottomless this love for you really is. Now, as you begin to go through your trainings, which you began on the surface world, you will be given instructions. From time to time, various people who are counselors and teachers will come and pop in on you at assigned times and give you teachings. Each one of these teachings is like a class, but I really can't call it a class, so I'm going to call it teachings, because they'll come with their advanced technology. And you can actually then do things in the crystal cities, these metamorphosis chambers, that you can't do on planet Earth, the surface world. And this, once again, is about transition. Transition is the key word here. And transition with love and joy. And you'll soon realize that one of the main things that the Agarthans want to do is to make you become a fully conscious human being. As you become a fully conscious human being, all the love and all the energies of heaven become a part of you. And you're no longer separated. You have this complete walking into your world's unity, so to speak. So what will happen, and what we expect will happen, is that as you become more and more able to see where you are and to see who you have become or are becoming, you will take these temporary residences and you will use them to play. And that's what is expected. You'll take your replicator and you'll change your furniture from what you now have. You'll want to have one of these fancy communication centers, these media centers. You'll want to suddenly have a sonic shower of advanced type. You'll want to be able to create your own clothes instead of going shopping. You'll want to be able to use these replicators to create all kinds of parties or just unique menus, so you don't have to go to a restaurant and sit around for an hour or two waiting either for food or waiting to even get to a table. This is the neat thing. The table is actually coming to you. Now, once all of this is experienced, it's expected that humans on this planet that live on the surface world will suddenly see all of this and go, wow, incredible, amazing, just as I did when I was a kid. I always wanted to either go to Agartha and stay there, or else I wanted to go up on the ships and never come back. Well, either one is the same. These are like the ships, because what do you have? You have the ability to teleport to any place in the galaxy, in the universe. You have the ability to bring anything in the galaxy and the universe to you. So whether you're in a ship or in the cavern worlds or in the crystal cities on the surface of inner Earth, you have the same basic capabilities. And this is one of the things that's really important to emphasize. It is really, really important for you to know that the crystal cities are not some purgatory deep in the earth. They are a place of joy, of beauty, and of unlimited potential abilities for you and your environment. And beside, there's all kinds of neat ecological areas in the earth that you just might want to visit and look at. Suddenly, all kinds of new expeditions that you never thought of, or vacations or whatever you want, because you'll want to explore inner Earth just like you explored the surface world. And guess what? If you've never been to Paris, you can recreate Paris, because the replicator unit can create Paris exactly as is required. And this is what is so unique and wonderful about it. And this is what makes this whole concept so incredibly marvelous. And so, just remember this with our final slide here about the nature of the metamorphosis. These facilities allow you to keep up with your friends and family. You can even go on a vacation if you so desire. And now you can go to vacations of any place on the surface world, plus new places. Wonderful places in inner Earth. The recreational and meeting areas are to be available to you Here you can interact with those also assigned to this place. And the assigned is everywhere. So if you know somebody that wound up in another metamorphosis crystal city, guess what? You can visit one another. Anytime whatever you think happens. As you are, as you think, so there you are. That is what is really important. It may sound a little confusing, but that's important. And finally, the technology in your residence can rapidly educate you about any subject you wish to know about. Think of the largest library in the world. Think of a computer that has every major library in the world from ancient times to the present that's available for you. And it can be translated instantly, regardless of its original language, into the language that you know. Think of that. And if you want to go to ancient Greece, you can go there. You want to go to ancient China? You can go there. If you want to go to some planet in Sirius, the third or fourth planet, if you want to go to a planet on one of the many stars that makes up the Pleiades, if you want to go to Arcturus, if you want to go to one of the many, many star systems, star nations that make up Andromeda, etc., you can go there. This is what makes this technology and what makes our future so unbelievably incredible. So let me just say one final word here before we leave, and that is, feel blessed with what is happening. And know that the future in Inner Earth is not some obstructive, weird, crazy, limited thing. It's unlimited. And it's the same as the ships. So don't look at the ships as being one thing and Inner Earth as being something else. They are the same. And I want to emphasize that. So just realize that, just flow, and understand all of that. That question's easy to answer. Those people going into Inner Earth, which we've just talked about, those people are those that are to stay here within this star nation, within Earth, and to later be part of the recolonization of a reformed Mars, a reformed Venus, and a reconstituted, what I like to call Bellona, what some people call Maldek. And those that are going in the ships are doing because they have finished their time here on this planet. And in this particular life cycle of their lifetime, they've been told that they can now go home. So those that are going to the ships are returning to their home worlds, because their mission on planet Earth is over. All of that, as far as antique cars go, if you want to have antique cars, a collection in your unit, and use them as you wish, or just look at them, that'll be part of the holographic theater, so it'll be there. As for pets, initially the pets will not be there with you, very short period of time. What they want you to do is develop a certain level of telepathy. Once that is done, which people should probably even have developed before they even come to Inner Earth, then the pets will be returned. The pets really have been telling people in Agartha and Galactic Federation that they would like to be able to talk directly. Not just people feeling them, but actually talking like you would with one another. So they can teach their owners, and their owners can teach them some additional things that they want to know as equals, not just as pet and owner. So that's what's going to be happening. So your favorite horse, you'll get to meet it. Your favorite dog, or your cats, or dogs and cats, whatever it is, birds, parrots, canaries, whatever, they'll be reunited at the right time, which I've just set up with the basic prerequisites. They're going to go to environments that are similar to their native environments, because a lot of them want to experience the environments that they're used to. In other words, dogs love to be with lots of other dogs. Cats the same way. Dogs and certain other animals like to interact. So they'll all be in areas where they can create an environmental interaction until they go back to the owners that they all love and want to be able to communicate and be a part of in a different way. At the appropriate time after first contact. Roughly it'll take about 6 to 8 months after first contact, we will be in the inner Earth. Those that are assigned to stay here, and those, of course, that are to then leave will then leave into the ships and go to their home worlds. Now in this next slide, we see the Metamorphosis Crystal City. Now this is a view of the Crystal City as you would be moving in a ship heading towards it. The Cavern World Crystal Cities are located adjacent to the Metamorphosis Crystal Cities. The difference, as we said, between the two of them is that the Metamorphosis Crystal Cities have 4 levels of temporary residence, and the others have just 2. The Metamorphosis Crystal Cities residence spaces, which are the units in the residential circles, of which there are 6 in each residential circle, are slightly bigger than those in a regular crystal city. The reason for this is they wanted to make absolutely sure that every aspect of your world could be absolutely recreated with no problems to the people involved in living in these cities. In other words, they wanted you to feel completely comfortable. Now, let's look at the journey that you have from your surface world to the crystal cities. The first phase is that when the time comes to move you, you'll be put in a mode where you feel very, very tired. Once you feel very, very tired, you'll go to sleep. Then you'll be teleported up to a ship. The ship will then go to the crystal city in the cavern nearest to the Metamorphosis Crystal City that you are to be the new residents of. Now what we're seeing here is the ship moving, in this particular slide, the ship moving from the Crystal City in the Cavern World next to the Metamorphosis City into the Metamorphosis City. When the approaches around this distance, you'll then be teleported into your residential area. In other words, that unit of the residential circle that is to be yours. So then you'll wake up as you went to sleep in your own bed, only it will be the bed of the new Metamorphosis Crystal City residence that you have. So what is happening here is you are moving from your home back to what seems like your home, and you've not moved anywhere, because they want you in the immediate area when you wake up to feel completely that you haven't changed. Because the first thing they want to be able to do is to have you feel comfortable, to feel that you are totally in the same place. Now, one of the things that you're going to be shown after the initial period of transition is you are going to be shown the scene like you see right here, approaching the cities and looking at them. Only it would be an animation. So this is like a still from the animation. And what it is about is having you then understand that you are now 400 miles underneath planet Earth in an area near where you are, and allowing you to then see that you have been in an area that has been completely replicated so that it looks exactly like the place that you left on this world of the surface. So what you are having is another difference. You'll also feel the love emanating from each crystal tower to you. You'll feel the love of planet Earth. This is one of the things that is very important for the people in Agartha for you to understand or feel, is to feel secure, to feel safe, and to feel loved. It's very important for them that you understand that you are now in a place of the final change from being a limited conscious being to returning in a very short period to being a fully conscious being. This is very important for the people of Agartha for you to understand, because as I've said, the whole process is about shifting you from being a limited conscious being to being a fully conscious being. And it will show you that you are in a place of immense beauty and that you live in an incredible cavern world. Now the sun that you see here is the central sun, and what happens is the cavern worlds are set up so that there are spaces that attach, or like huge shafts that attach to the caverns. So what you are seeing is the light being projected down the shaft, and it's set up within the holographic environment that surrounds the city to look just like the central sun. So what you see is the crystal city as would look whether in a cavern world or directly on inner Earth. And they want you to understand the beauty of this new technology and what this technology is about, and that it signifies for you that this world is part of a great transition. That you are now in a world where this reality that we now live in is about to be quickly changed. While you are down in the metamorphosed crystal cities, up on the surface, planet Earth will be changing. A new physical Earth will emerge in about a week's time. When this is over, everything that exists on the surface will be gone. And the Galactic Federation, along with the Agarthans, will be working rapidly to bring forth what we like to call the pristine environment of planet Earth. So that Mother Earth will then go back to having forests, because a lot of these forests and jungles are going to be burnt by this immense amount of volcanic activity. And also the vast changes in the atmosphere are going to cause the Earth's atmosphere to shift. So you are down there safe and sound, changing at a speed that makes it work for you, and at the same time planet Earth, Mother Earth, is changing. So that when you are done, she is done. And that's what is important. And so what this picture represents is that change. Its beauty represents the beauty of the change of you from limited consciousness to full consciousness. That same change is also happening on Mother Earth. So the symbol really of all that's changing in you is right here in this picture, which is the picture that you would see in your ship moving if you weren't unconscious, of course, sleeping. And of course you will be allowed to leave the metamorphosis chamber after you've shifted, and this is what you'll see when you leave. So let me just leave you with blessings, thanks, and a wonderful Salamat Jah, be in light, and may you all have enjoyed this, and may you all truly be blessed and enjoy your future in inner Earth. Salamat Jah. Now our mailing address is the Planetary Activation Organization at 204 East 2nd Avenue, number 408, San Mateo, California, 94401. Our website is paoweb.com. Our voicemail is 808-573-3110. And our email, finally, is info@paoweb.com.